Number 6. Arrow. At the beginning of the season, we meet Oliver and Felicity where we left them, in domestic bliss, far from the madness that is the newly christened Star City, renamed in Ray Palmer's memory. But a new player is in town, causing trouble for the Arrowless Team Arrow, one Damien Darhk and his evil organization known as Hive. And soon, Thea and Laurel come calling for Ollie to return. Felicity is strangely supportive in their returning to the team. Turns out she's been helping from afar, and before long the whole team is reunited. With his Arrow persona killed last season by Roy taking the fall for him, Ollie embraces a more positive role as the city's protector, publicly dubbing himself the Green Arrow. It took them 3 seasons to get there, but it's still largely satisfying to have a slightly more light-hearted take on the character. One of the high points of the season was Damien Darhk himself, played by Neil McDonough, with equal parts jocular wit and grim intimidation. As we're told last season, Darhk was a contemporary of Ra's al Ghul, and owns his share of Lazarus Pit water that's prolonged his life. They never really play up his use of Lazarus Pit waters, but his practice of magic. Darhk gets his hooks on Quentin Lance early, and gets his help on several underhanded capers by threatening him with Laurel. Eventually, Green Arrow finds out, but it's decided that Lance will continue on as a mole in Hive. Thea gets a pretty good arc this season. As the season opens, she's enjoying her new role as Speedy, but soon the bloodlust from her dip in the Lazarus Pit begins to take over. Jerry Ryan guest stars as an old friend of Moira's who intends to run for mayor until her daughter is abducted by Anarchy, who has been hired by Darhk. Ironically, this isn't the first time Ryan has been in a DC show. She was in the original Flash series as a kidnapped debutante that was traumatized by the deadly evil Nightshade. Anarchy becomes a recurring foil for Thea, who sets him on fire during one of her bloodlust attacks. He takes to calling her Mommy, which is as equally hilarious as it is disturbing. While the writing this season doesn't reach the level of absurdity of last season, there's still strange inconsistencies, such as Darhk threatening Lance with his daughter Laurel's safety, while chastising Anarchy's kidnapping Ryan's daughter as distasteful. How's that? About this time, Laurel discovers how Ollie revived Thea, setting up her returning her sister Sarah's corpse to Nanda Parbat, in the hope that Malcolm, the newly reigning Raz, will restore her in the pit. He eventually acquiesces, but immediately after Sarah's regeneration, Nyssa, who's been relegated to Malcolm's sparring partner, destroys the pit, effectively ending the show's get-out-of-death-free card. More on that later. After being brought back to Star City, Sarah gets free and tries to kill Thea. After capturing her, in comes John Constantine as our guest star to take Ollie and Laurel on a magical mystery tour to the spirit world to recover Sarah's soul. In the flashback, we find Ollie met John before and he owes him a favor. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a whole lot to do in the episode. For the record, I watched the series Constantine on the strength of Matt Ryan's performance, since horror, demons, and that stuff really isn't my cup of tea. But he gives a great performance here once again, and I wouldn't be against utilizing his talents on any of the CW shows in the future. Can I just say how great it is to get Katie Lotz back as Sarah Lance? She does a great job here, as does all the cast, but I thought the entire cast really elevated their game this season. Not long after, Sarah hits the road, unable to control her bloodlust. Enter Ray Palmer, who survived his apparent death by his long-awaited shrinking powers. He also sticks around for a couple of episodes before deciding to remain dead to the public. Of course, Legends of Tomorrow ensures that the two heroes won't be unemployed for long. Diggle finally gets a costume of sorts, and a mask, or at least the half-hearted attempt at a mask, and the moniker Spartan. After 2 long seasons, the Diggle's brother mystery is finally addressed. It gives David Ramsey a nice chance for some of the spotlight, and he does a great job with the part, but it comes across very convoluted. It's unclear at first if Andy is under Hive's sway, since their troops, known as Ghosts, all take a little mother's helper that's supposed to ensure their allegiance. But apparently, Andy is a true believer, and was a dirty louse from the get-go. It seems strange that the bottom line is that Diggle never really knew his brother at all, and that his saintly reverence for him was undeserved. Even though Andy's wife and son are mentioned a few times, they really don't have any part of the story. It's so sloppily handled, as if the 2 full seasons they had to plan for the story meant nothing, and they made it up as they went along. Then we have the mid-season crossover episode between Arrow and The Flash. I'm going to cover it here since Arrow's storyline was more prevalent to either show. Unlike last year, this is actually a 2-part story, so if you're not watching both shows, you're not going to get the full picture. It works as a great setup to Legends of Tomorrow in some subtle and not-so-subtle ways. Vandal Savage is introduced, as well as Hawkman. Kendra, who is at this point in the Flash series Cisco's girlfriend, emerges as Hawkgirl. It's always cool to see both Flash and Green Arrow work together, and they integrate both teams pretty effortlessly. Unfortunately, they choose this episode as the backdrop to pick up the Ollie baby mama drama storyline planted nearly 2 seasons ago. Not only is it pretty much a downer for a superhero team-up episode, but it signals the Olicity monster rearing its ugly head for the second half of the season. But apart from the subplot, it's really an enjoyable feature-length story. When Felicity finds out Ollie has a son that his baby mama made him promise not to tell her, it puts their relationship on the rocks, which single-handedly results in nearly the entire cast of both shows getting killed. How's that for a metaphor? Fortunately, Flash manages to race back in time, giving them a do-over. Vandal is destroyed, the Hawks depart, and all is well for the time being. Malcolm gathers some of Vandal's remains, opening the door for his return on Legends of Tomorrow. Ollie's main arc this season is that he can't be the killer he once was. He needs to give hope both as the Green Arrow and as Mayor Queen. That's put to the test during the mid-season finale when Darhk has he and Felicity ambushed by gunmen. Felicity is injured in the attack and becomes paralyzed from the waist down. I actually really liked the way this was handled. Ollie becomes more relentless in his approach to finding Darhk, leading to Quentin Lance questioning if he's reverting back to being a killer. Green Arrow goes so far as to release the recently captured Anarchy, with the hope that he'll be able to lead him to Darhk. The implication being that while he himself won't kill Darhk, he'll have no compunction about letting a maniac like Anarchy kill Darhk. I loved that concept. It's a cool bit of wiggle room that the Batman Begins Bruce Wayne would have appreciated. In the end, Anarchy attempts to kill Darhk's family, and so Arrow and Speedy must step in and stop him. So much for the best-laid plans. Echo Kellum plays Curtis Holt this season, which is a character they intend to turn into their version of DC's Mr. Terrific. The only problem is Curtis seems to have more in common with Steve Urkel than the comic book version of Mr. Terrific. They made the character gay as an obvious attempt at appealing to that demographic. Now anyone knows me knows I hate race, gender-changing characters, and the like. If they want to have a gay hero on the show, create a new hero. Don't take the lazy way out and just take the name of another hero and assign a different personality to it. Do like you did with Diggle. Make him his own character. They didn't steal a personality for him. They created a new one. And they could have done the same thing here. Have Curtis be the brother of the real Mr. Terrific or something, and spin him into his own identity. Curtis seems to be here as a Felicity substitute. While she spends half the time mired in drama, Curtis picks up the slack in humor. His tech wizardry helps alleviate a little bit of the drama when he creates a chip that allows Felicity to walk again. I'll take this opportunity to jump into the flashback portion of the show. The season opens with the ridiculous concept of Ollie being the proto-Arrow in Coast City, and doing pretty badly at it. He's too ashamed to return home after the killer he's become. Amanda Waller finds him, drugs him, in typical Amanda Waller fashion, and sends him back to the island on a mission. Now I like that they've returned to the island, and since it's been a full season since we've been there, it feels relatively fresh. The plot is nothing much to speak of, but in a way, I think that's what makes it successful. It's pretty straightforward, without a crapload of twists and turns to follow. It's nothing too special, but it doesn't overstay its welcome like many previous flashback seasons have. In a nutshell, the flashback heavy is named Ryder. He has prisoners working a poppy field as a front for him to find the mysterious idol that Darhk has in present day, which is somewhere hidden on the island. Ollie goes to work for Ryder, ultimately allying himself with Tiana, a Russian prisoner. Eventually Ryder finds the idol, Tiana gets hold of it, and its dark magic corrupts her. This all plays fairly well, except for the rushed ending, where Tiana asks Ollie to kill her. It's like, nah, kill me, it's the only way. And Ollie's like, if I have to. It could have been played a little bit better is what I'm saying. She makes Ollie promise to go to Russia to tell her family of her fate, which is where we can expect to find him next season. A lot of people want to just nix the flashbacks entirely at this point, but Ollie joining the Russian mob has been hinted at since the first season, so I'm kinda curious to see it. A few familiar faces show up this season, such as Colton Haynes returning for an episode as Roy Harper, formerly Arsenal. I really wish he'd return full-time, but I believe he wanted out due to his anxiety issues. Selena Jade returns during a flashback as a hallucination. Katana gets only a brief cameo, as her role in Suicide Squad put the kibosh on any further appearances. In the same way, Amanda Waller is unceremoniously killed off with a bullet in the head. She died as she lived, with a smug grin on her face. Megalyn EK makes her first live-action appearance as Vixen. Oliver makes a cheeky reference to meeting her during her animated adventures. She does a great job, and it's disappointing that she's one of the few heroes introduced not to be spun off to Legends of Tomorrow. They give Felicity a lot of the focus, arguably too much this season, but the problem isn't so much getting the screen time, but what they do with it. I think that Emily Bett Rickards did well with the paralyzed Felicity storyline, going as far as to play against a hallucination of her former goth self. If they had just stuck with this as her storyline for the season, all would be well, but more on that later. Now, I didn't hate last season, but this season, to its credit, does try to fix the many problems left by the previous season. Dig and Ollie kiss and make up, metaphorically speaking, from Ollie's endangering Lila last season. Detective Lance goes back to being on Team Arrow full-time. Most importantly, Sarah is brought back by the Lazarus Pit, and Malcolm is removed as the head of the League of Assassins, along with his hand being removed from his arm by Ollie. This was actually my favorite arc of the season. Thea's not giving in to her bloodlust takes its toll on her, causing her wounds to reappear. Meanwhile, Nyssa has escaped her confinement and holds the only potion that will save Thea's life as a bargaining chip to hold over Malcolm unless he relinquishes his role as the League of Assassins leader. I love how Nyssa still considers Ollie to be her husband and refers to him as such, even despite there being no attraction between them. In the end, Ollie saves Thea, and Nyssa gets control of the League, which she quickly disbands. It also appears Thea and Malcolm are finally on the outs full-time. This is the first time pretty much since the first season to make use of Malcolm as a villain again, and Barrowman really gets the fire that he had in that first season finale. Last season, and even a few episodes prior in this season, Malcolm has been used as a less-than-savory ally, but his real forte is in being a villain. Unfortunately, the powers that be seem content to marginalize him, making him a stooge for Damien Darhk in the last half of the season. Now that Barrowman has an all-encompassing contract for all 4 shows, maybe his role as a heavy will finally be given a chance to flourish elsewhere. At the same time, Felicity gets yet another storyline as her long-lost dad, dubbed the Calculator, as he has the same hacking skills that she has, appears. Eventually, Felicity has him arrested, but it seems pretty hypocritical. Ollie has gone out of his way not to kill Malcolm because he's Thea's father, despite the huge body count he racked up from the undertaking, while Felicity turns her dad in for his decidedly unlethal crimes out of some petty spite. Felicity's mom, Donna, returns several times. I don't really mind her in small doses, but the reunion between her and Felicity's dad was insufferable. But to be honest, I thought it was amusing to see her paired up with Quentin, but less is definitely more with her character. The last quarter of the season was the most trying. They laid the Olicity on very thick. Ollie and Felicity break up when she finds out that Ollie was keeping his son William a secret from her, regardless of the fact that Ollie was forced to keep him a secret due to William's mother giving Ollie that ultimatum. Much as I disliked the baby mama subplot, the resolution kinda worked for me. It seemed a cautionary tale. This guy cheated on every relationship he ever had with whomever he could. It seems his penance is not to have a relationship with his son during his childhood. At this point, Darhk goes to jail for kidnapping William, which feels like a pretty useless time waster, giving Guggenheim a chance to write more court drama. After he breaks out, Dark's full plan titled Genesis is finally revealed. And yes, as a big Genesis fan, I was happy Felicity made the obvious reference. His plan, to wit, nuke the planet, killing billions of people, which will feed his little idol, giving him unlimited power, while he and his followers take refuge in an underground bunker made to look like Pleasantville. Darhk expounds on his plan to reset the world, but as much as I applaud them for trying something new this season with mysticism, it inevitably feels more like a James Bond plot than something a team of masked superheroes should be dealing with. After Andy is exposed as a traitor, Darhk learns of the team's secret identities. And while I could buy the previous villains, Malcolm, Slade, and Roz, having some kind of code or agenda which would cause them to keep Team Arrow's secret identities, I don't really see Darhk as that type. He comes across far too ruthless, and it's not really explained why he wouldn't out Oliver. This is a good time to point out that the action on this show is superb. It's still second to none of the other comic shows out there. The fight scenes and vehicle chases never fail to impress. Now, the grave has been teased since day 1. This season, somebody on the team was gonna die. Unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they didn't go with a fringe character, but with Laurel. And this was most troubling because Black Canary has a long history with Green Arrow in the comics. And many of us hoped that when the smoke cleared from the Olicity mania, maybe they'd work Ollie closer to Laurel again. In fact, in the few shows leading up to her death, they did try to move her a bit closer into Ollie's sphere. Laurel was actually hated by fans about as much as Felicity is now, back when they dismantled her character in Season 2. But they really made strides in winning folks back, making Laurel an actually good character again. But ultimately, Guggenheim pretty much will do anything to satisfy the rabid Olicity crowd, going so far as to kill off Ollie's comic-accurate love interest as to prevent Felicity having a rival. It's really almost frightening the extent to which they seem to have made the entire cast of characters genuflect to Felicity in deference to the Olicity fans. Now, I'm not going to waste time ranting over Laurel's death. At this point, we all know Katie Cassidy is under contract for at least 3 of the 4 DCCW shows. Not sure about Supergirl at this point. Her death seemed suspect to begin with. First the doctor saying she was alright, then Laurel telling Ollie to make some secret promise, then she suddenly dies. What will most likely happen is her return will be born out of some time travel shenanigans on Legends of Tomorrow, bringing her back to Arrow for a few episodes, and then we'll still have Katie playing Black Siren on Flash a couple of times a year. In any case, you have to feel bad for Quentin. The guy loses a daughter every year like clockwork. Not a whole lot of new villains of the week this season. The most promising one was Double Down, a metahuman that creates razor-sharp cards from his tattoos. Cupid returns, as does Bug-Eye Bandit with an impressive henchman made entirely of robot bees. Murmur returns and joins Darhk's team. His creepy, ghoulish look makes him an effective henchman. As does the ever-entertaining Vinnie Jones as Brick. In the end, Diggle ends up killing his brother. They seem to want to play it up as a spur-of-the-moment thing at first before settling in on Diggle straight-up killing him. Not long after, we have the big showdown between Darhk and Green Arrow, and it's staged as a very enjoyable brawl in the middle of town. In order for Green Arrow to win, he needs more positive vibes to counteract the power of the tens of thousands of souls Darhk killed with his nuke. He does this as Oliver Queen, making a speech to Star City, rousing them to defend their city. The plan works, Ghostbusters 2 style, and Darhk is weakened enough for Arrow to kill him. Now, this feels counterproductive. After all the platitudes of Ollie needing a different approach and how he can't be the killer he once was, it seems the showrunners completely backtrack for the sake of giving the ending a bit more edge. When Darhk reminds Ollie he didn't even kill the man who murdered his mother, it feels like they're saying in effect, well, we didn't kill Slade because he was definitely cooler, and we wish we could bring him back. You, not so much. It's pretty confusing to what extent Team Arrow uses lethal force. For all Ollie's talk about not dropping bodies anymore, for the most part he's still shooting people with plain old-fashioned arrows. Now all of Damien's ghosts wear heavy-looking flak vests, and Ollie tends to shoot them in the shoulder. Andy takes such an arrow in the same spot while wearing the uniform and he survived. So there's plausible deniability in Ollie's case. What troubles me more is Diggle. He starts out using a tranq gun, which indiscriminately goes back and forth between using tranq darts and live ammo. Why is Ollie okay with this? Why doesn't Quentin get on Diggle's case about this? It's kind of mind-boggling. And am I the only one who remembered that Thea was immune to Darhk's life-draining whammy? Why didn't she get the kill? Would have made her leaving at the end a bit more effective at least. Speaking of leaving, they did the same thing last year with the team splitting up. Quentin is leaving town with Donna, Thea contemplating her life, John rejoining the military. Can't they just end the season on a group hug and a glass of champagne for a change? And this was supposed to be the lighthearted season. So in the final analysis, was this season better than the last? Well, yes and no. Last season's biggest strength was also its biggest weakness. It tried to be too ambitious, taking a crap ton of ideas and plot lines, throwing them to the wall, and seeing what would stick. This season seemed better written and tighter of focus, at least. Part of the problem is that the last half of the season continued to fall back on Felicity-themed storylines instead of exploring other mystical characters from the DC catalog. It was a perfect opportunity to pull together a Justice League Darhk type of team-up at the end, with Constantine returning, introduce Zatanna, Dr. Fate. The possibilities are staggering. Instead, we got the Smoke Family reunion. I'm giving Arrow Season 4 4 stars out of 5. This is Johnnie Torch reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.